the state and authority is undermined from the left. I mean, I think that's the main issue, in fact, with the book is, I think, at least for me, is the fact that she doesn't see the fact that it's the left that is mostly culpable for the demonization of the state and the demonization of authority in problematic ways.
No, I think it's a very, very good point, because the book is aligning itself with the political left, but the analysis of the weaknesses, or it's not at the moment that at least the British left is not a unified group, and there are certain aspects or certain tendencies which do have a really significant anti-political strain and anti-democratic impulse, and it does a bit of a disservice to the rest of the analysis to skate over this, because I mean, really this is the real question facing us today, is how do we kind of make that defense of class-based politics and a real defense of politics as the only route for working class self-government. That's what we're all kind of moving towards, and I think it unless you look at the elements within the left that are actually fighting actively against that, it's not a complete story.
And I think she ends up opting for a sort of leftism, I would say, and in this is visible in her constant references to the right and the left, with often very little differentiation between different strands of the right, different strands on the left, and wants to simply defend the left against the right. So she talks about, there's no space of representation now for left-wing people, as if left-wing people is a pre-existing defined segment of the population, rather than people need to be won over by left-wing ideas. And I think in general, she, as Phil has said, she tries to blame corporations or the right or the markets, is not very interested in looking at how political institutions are imbricated in this. It's that kind of leftism which blames capitalism, but sees capitalism purely as market institutions, and not a social system. And I think that's kind of a pretty important philosophical weakness in her book and her approach. There's some weird, and I think it's most seen in one bit where she says, if the left don't like to use the word left, which is, by the way, kind of a weird thing. Apparently the left doesn't like to use the word left. I wasn't aware of that, but maybe, anyway, we can leave that one aside. But she says, if the left don't like to use the word left, it is because they are victims of this process being depoliticization or post-ideology. So it's a little bit like, there's an element of a kind of a whinge that the left have been defeated. The right have done all these unfair things, like pretending to be on the side of the people or on the side of the masses or the working class when they're actually not. This is really unfair, and the left have been victims in this whole thing. And that's the part of it which I found really the weakest, because it opts for victimology instead of an actual analysis of the way that the left has been, constitutive of our contemporary society, the way that the left has played a part in leading to certain sort of anti-authoritarian stances which reject state power absolutely, or reject the taking of power, as Phil has already described.